A while ago, I had a conversation down in the comments with Jamie M about Pokemon that place markers and counters on your opponent's Pokemon. And I was kind of sitting on the topic, waiting to make a video until it became more relevant, but I think now's a good time. It's a gameplay mechanic that kind of seems out of place for Pokemon, and you didn't really see it all that often in these older sets, but one of the more common places you saw it was on the Neo Genesis Quilava that had the Char attack. So this attack was introduced before Burn was a special condition in the TCG, so what you see here is basically dealing 30 damage and also burning your opponent. But instead of laying a special condition down on them, you put a Char counter on them. And there's actually a huge difference here because according to the Wizards of the Coast ruling, the only way to get rid of one of these Char counters is to evolve the Pokemon or to remove it from play with something like Scoop Up. So even if that Pokemon retreats to the bench, they're still going to have to flip for Burn every turn. And Wizards of the Coast basically carried this same ruling over to every other Pokemon that laid markers or counters, which did make for some interesting gameplay. If you look at this Black Star promo Electabuzz, you could place Lightning Rod markers on every single one of your opponent's Pokemon. That way, whenever you wanted to use Lightning Bolt, you were dealing some massive spread damage. Because of that, you did get some interesting team-ups with cards like Crobat, and I've actually thought about putting up an Electabuzz Crobat deck on the channel, so if you'd like to see that, let me know down in the comments. Of the earlier sets in Pokemon, most of those that could place markers or counters were actually exclusive to Japan and never saw release outside. One of which is Hungry Snorlax, which was an N64 promo back in the day. And again, the inclusion of these food counters actually had some pretty big gameplay implications. Since Snorlax did have 100 HP, you could spend turn after turn using Eat to play these food counters onto Hungry Snorlax, which could effectively give you a 30 damage buff whenever you wanted to use Rollout for however many of these food counters you wanted to remove. And again, one of the great things about this is that the food counters are not going to go away. Even if you retreat Snorlax onto the bench, maybe if you want to retreat it and heal it up a little bit before you make it your main attacker again, those food counters are going to stay. There was also a Jinx released as a Koro promo that never left Japan, but it has this Demon Curse attack where you can put a curse marker on your opponent's Pokemon, and if that Pokemon is hit for weakness, it's actually quadruple damage instead of double. And this is very situational. It would fit really well in a Potpourri style deck. That way you can put Demon Curse counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon that way. You can just hit them for weakness later on in the game, kind of force your opponent to play around them, but it mainly seems to be a really important tool for Psychic type Pokemon because most Psychic types were weak to Psychic type. So if you're up against something like a promo Mewtwo and you put a curse counter on it, pretty much whatever you hit it with from another Psychic type Pokemon is gonna knock it out. Effectively, these marks and counters really served as just a boost to whatever the Pokemon could do, and I really actually like that aspect and wish that there was more of it in the early TCG. For instance, here's another Coral promo of Cubone, where you can spend one turn placing a bone counter on it, and then the next turn, use Bone Killer for only one energy. You're going to be able to deal 40 damage, and because both attacks only cost one energy, you're pretty much going to be energy removal proof. And because of that, this Cubone is really set up to be a great Haymaker card in the same way that the Jungle Scyther was and even base set Farfetch'd way back in the day. My personal favorite marker placing Pokemon has to be the Vending Series Grimer. Using Sludge Liquid, you could place a Sludge marker on the opposing Pokemon, and as long as that Sludge marker was on there, it cost one more energy to retreat. Again, the Sludge marker could not be removed unless the Pokemon completely left play or evolved. And a little later in the format, you could evolve the Vending Grimer into Dark Muck, which added another 2 energy to the retreat cost, effectively trapping whatever your opponent's active was, which could be especially devious if you had something like Dark Gloom that could put special conditions on it. Though it didn't place any counters or markers itself, I think it's very noteworthy to include the fan club promo Porygon and its implications in the metagame. If you're not familiar with this card or you'd like to learn about why it is so rare and important to the Japanese metagame, check out my video on the fan club promos that's already on the channel. This Porygon's all-clear attack was basically a huge reset button for the game board. It stopped all Pokemon powers, it removed all special conditions, and it removed all trainer cards in play, including gyms, which no other card at the time could do. And why this is of note is that this attack actually includes wording that also removes counters and markers from any Pokemon that has it, which makes it very unique as this is the only way to remove those counters without removing that card from play or evolving. When I look through the Japanese tournament data, I see this Porygon pop up a lot as just a one-off tech card, and it's no wonder why. However, I don't really know what kind of impact that Jinx, Cubone, or Snorlax really had on the metagame and their ability to place those markers. Because of its synergy with Dark Muck, like I mentioned, the Vending Series Grimer was the preferred Grimer to use in Dark Muck decks, especially in the base Neo format. So I am currently trying to get my hands on a playset of these for a Dark Muck video on the channel. We'll just have to see how that goes. But one card that did see release outside of Japan and did have an effect on the metagame outside of Japan was the Black Star promo Smeargle. And that's why I waited until now to make this video, because I do have a paint deck coming up on the channel soon. If you can hit the coin flip, then Smeargle's paint attack can put a coloring counter on your opponent's Pokemon, making it whatever type you want. And even if they retreat, that coloring counter stays on there and that Pokemon is stuck being that type. So of course the utility of this card would usually be forcing your opponent's Pokemon to be whatever type your deck has a resistance to. And because it is base Neo and was out around the time of Neo, all Steel types and Dark types had a resistance to Psychic. So Smeargle fit right into Steel and Dark decks. If you had a problematic Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field, you could just make it a Psychic type, and then it was going to deal 30 less damage to you for the rest of the game. Honestly, the only thing holding this card back from being one of those tech cards that you see in tons of decks, like your Apom or an Igglybuff, is the fact that you have to flip a coin, and Smeargle only has 40 HP, so even if you're wasting a focus band on it, the odds that you're actually going to be able to change your opponent's type does hold this card back a lot. So you're kind of forced to build the deck around Smeargle instead of just letting it be a really cool tech card. If you want to know more about how this Smeargle card could be utilized, stay tuned for the Paint Lock video. But in the meantime, let me know down in the comments what you think about these special counters and markers. Did I miss any cards that you know about that utilize them? And have you ever used any of them in a deck? Or if you have any special topics relating to Pokemon stuff, just let me know down in the comments. I'm more than happy to dive into some different stuff. Thanks for watching, and until next video.